down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you drop. Get down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you drop. Yeah, we hustle, but the
Oh my. Oh my.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Behind the Department video series with the Fire and Safety Services calendar project for 2024. Today we're in Princeton, New Jersey. Chief Matt Stiff. Chief, thanks for having us.
Of course.
Behind us, Heavy Rescue 168. We did a behind the build video around the Heavy Rescue truck. An incredible build. A lot goes into it. This is not my first time here, so I know a little bit more about the department and you, so it's going to make for, I think, a better conversation to really educate the viewer about the Princeton First Aid and Heavy Rescue Squad. So maybe you can just give me a little bit of background about who you guys are, how you came to be, and maybe your responsibilities.
So the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad came to be as a separate part of the Princeton Fire Department. So we started as the first aid unit of the fire department, broke off, got our own building, started doing our own thing as the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. Most of our existence, we were down off of North Harrison Street in a much smaller building that was really designed for Cadillac ambulances and the old, bread truck, rescue trucks and the John boats. We really outgrew that building. We spent about 15, 20 years or so really planning to move into our new home, which we moved into in 2019, which is this
An incredible
here.
facility, yeah.
And then really this was the first new purchase of our new building. This truck would have never fit in our old building. So this was our first new apparatus for this station. Really just kind of combining a trailer that we used to have to park outside. So we finally get everything inside now. So it went from a trailer that we towed behind our expedition, and big trailer, little truck. It was always a scary situation.
Sure, of course.
And then we had a rescue truck that was just designed for one function, and we just kept piling on equipment and piling and piling. It was overweight, overpacked, and we just needed to get something into a much more user-friendly truck, and that got us to where we are now.
I think it just falls in line with the storytelling of what the fire service really is. And the rescue and first aid services is, as time ticks on, the services get deeper, wider. We have a lot more offering, and now we have to really start honing our skills, which requires more equipment and education. And so from the roots of the fire department right up through the first aid and rescue squad that you are today, I mean, you guys are tasked with all of the heavy rescue and tech rescue for your jurisdiction as well as outlying areas as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a lot of change. And, first aid is really, first aid and rescue is, infancy compared to the fire service.
Yes.
The fire service, predates the forming of the country.
Sure.
And EMS really didn't start coming around until, mid 20th century. It really started being something. We joke a lot that it's, the ambulance drivers, and that's really what it started out being. It was just, you drove a Cadillac that would have a bed in the back.
Right.
You pick somebody up, didn't really do anything for them.
Race
throw them in the back and get as fast as you can to that hospital. And now it's changed to the fact that we're doing medications in the field, the amount of training that we have to do, and it's the same in the fire service. It went from just show up with your buckets and throw water to there's science behind it. There's just a reason to why we do things the way we do it. EMS and rescue the same way. It's
the evolution, right? And getting to understand. I think this is. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it because it's a little bit unique. It's not overly common to have a first aid and rescue squad, right? A lot of times the rescue services, tech rescue, is offered by regional teams or by a fire department, not so much the EMS side or the EMS department. So it's a little bit more unique. I know there are several first aid and rescue departments within New Jersey and maybe some of the surrounding states, but I don't think it's overly common across the country.
No, really it's the idea behind doing rescue is fire-based in so many places.
Right.
New Jersey is really one of those last remaining oddities.
Interesting.
And even in our name, a first aid squad,
Right.
it's very old.
Yes.
It's the legacy of the fact that, when this started out, it was first aid. It was doing very basic, like bandage, stop bleeding kind of things. Very, very simple stuff. Moved to 5 points, then the EMT programs came out. But all of that, you're only looking 20, 25, 30 years, again, versus a fire service that's been out for a couple hundred years.
Right.
It's a lot, but the growth in what a first aid squad does to, starting with just basic bandaging to all the things that we can do now.
Yeah.
And even on the rescue side of things, where it was like, all right, we have an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to, cut a car apart with, a hammer and a chisel.
Yes,
to
yeah, right.
evolution.
Sure.
We've got hydraulic tools now, and
That's
now
right.
the sciences that back up, when we put in a trench panel, that panel's got to be able to hold X amount of pounds per square inch of force, and just the technology increasing, the science increasing. It's a lot.
And along with all of that comes the dedication and time that has to go into your volunteers and your career staff to be up on the latest and greatest. And that brings me to, I guess, my next question for you is, from those sleepy roots of separating from the fire department and starting in a smaller building up to the grand facility you're in today with the equipment that you have, along the way came a lot of people that helped get you where you are today. And I have to think the institution you are today looks very different than maybe just even a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many changes.
Right.
I mean, EMS went from like there was no regulation of it. It was just you've got a truck, you throw some lights on it and a siren and call it a day. That's your ambulance. So now we're part of the Department of Health. We have to make sure all of our trucks are licensed. We have to make sure they're all within certain specs.
Sure.
The training requirement. I mean, you're looking at 200 hours of training now versus a one-day class. What it used to be of like, right, this is how you put a basic bandage on. It's a ton. It's a lot of work, and all the departments and upper levels of government and everything else that are involved now to make it what it is.
And the call volume here, I mean, you said you're upwards of over 3,000 runs a year as a department. That's quite a demand.
It's a lot, and I think departments all over the country are feeling the same thing, especially with healthcare being where it is right now. A lot of people are relying on the EMS service as their primary care doctors. They don't have the money or the ability to get to a doctor's office. Sure. I make a 911 call, the doctor's office comes to me, and we're getting stretched really thin. With the pandemic, it was very apparent that EMS got really stretched out.
Right.
And just where that need is for EMS services in our country right now, it's a high demand.
I'm sure where you are today, thinking about the size of the department you are, the services that you offer, the growth of your personnel. I mean, you were a volunteer organization, and you now have career staff on around the clock. Mm-hmm. You're the career chief for the department. And then you have volunteers that come in and supplement the additional ambulances, the details. We did say we're in Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton comes with the name of an Ivy League institution that is very much at the forefront of a lot of the services that you're offering to them.
Yes. We're very fortunate with the relationship that we have with Princeton University that we do get a large number of volunteers from that relationship. Right. So you've got all your pre-med students, you've got people that are just looking for something to do, something to expand their knowledge base while they're in college. It's a great resource to come and volunteer your time here and learn how to do EMS. For a lot of pre-med students, this is your first taste of medicine. This is your first treating patients. And we've had a lot of very successful doctors come out of our program that start doing EMS with their time as undergrads at Princeton, and they go on to have very successful careers doing being doctors all over the world. And it all started here with our department.
Getting to know you through other projects and seeing the truck for a few times now and working with you today, something that really strikes a chord with me is as we walk around this beautiful building. I mean, it's only 5 years old. It's a gorgeous setting and backdrop for what you all do here. But the infrastructure and the way it's laid out, you certainly held on to tradition and culture here. Looking at the hallways are adorned with memorabilia, memorials to past members, a line of duty death that occurred within your department. There's just a real focus on your people, I think, is what I'm getting at. Looking at that culture and the pride that runs within the walls of this building, it really focuses on the individual, no?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of great stuff here. We have a great building, we have great equipment, but all that stuff is really to supplement the people.
Yeah.
Equipment you can get anywhere. Like, you can go out and you can get great equipment, but if you don't have the people to staff it, it means nothing.
Yeah.
So we get this equipment, we have this beautiful building here to enable our people to do what they do. And if we didn't have the great staff that we have and people really just having the dedication to the service, that's what makes it.
You said something earlier that really struck a chord with me as well, and it was, we have to deliver a professional service regardless of what our rank or title is here, meaning career or volunteer. There's one level and one expectation here, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we've always really prided ourselves on. And there's other models and other examples of how EMS can get done in the state and across the nation, but we've always modeled ours that it doesn't matter who you are, if you're receive a paycheck, you don't receive a paycheck. When the truck leaves the building and you're out on the street, nobody should be able to tell the difference between a paid staff member or volunteer. It shouldn't matter. We expect the same level of professionalism, the same level of training out of all of our staff. We don't have a paid truck versus a volunteer truck.
Right.
We commingle all of our staff together.
Yeah, I love that.
So, on any given day, you could have 2 volunteers, you could have 2 paid staffs, you could have 1 and 1, you could have a per diem with a full-time staff. You could have any sort of mix of people, and anybody on the street wouldn't be able to recognize the difference between one or the other.
Yeah, and it just goes to, I think, the culture, right? It's like you don't need to distinguish between them because everybody's considered an equal here, right? And when I walk around and look at your membership board and your accountability board, and you have pictures of all your all your members and what their position is, volunteer, career, per diem, whatever it is, it's just all of it is here to promote the individual to feel accepted and welcomed within your institution. It's hugely important.
Yeah, and I think that's really the big difference in having an organization that will last and one that won't. Is you have to have that legacy, and you can't forget the roots of where you came from.
Yes.
And one of the big things that we're struggling with, and we've been addressing in a lot of our meetings recently, is this is a new building for us.
Right.
We've only been here for 5 years, like you said, and a lot of our current membership weren't here when we had the old building.
Right.
And I think the appreciation
for
what we have here is getting lost. So we've been having conversations. I think our president had the idea of why don't we have a drill in our old building and just get people in that building to see where we came from. I mean, we had simple things of we had to reverse the way our mirrors went on our ambulances, because if they were going out the way they're supposed to, you couldn't clear the bays.
Right.
And the fact that our living quarters was the basement underneath the vehicle bay. So we have casement windows was the only daylight you got.
Right.
We had a shared office that was no bigger than a bathroom.
Sure.
And that had a computer in it. That was our entire IT department, was one computer.
Yep.
And just the growth that we went from there to this building, where our entire old building could fit in our vehicle bays here.
Yeah,
and
easily, right?
And just the growth and the expansion of the services we provide, and just what we came up with. It's a big deal, and it makes a difference.
It's built on the backbone of that, right? Knowing your culture and knowing where you've come from, your roots, they do matter. But over time, obviously, people aren't going to be in touch with the foundation. So that's where you need to keep it as a reminder to keep you humble, I would say. The other aspect of it, too, with culture, though, is with a facility like this, you recognize when you double down on your people, you get more out of them. You have study quarters here. You have a bunk-in area. You have a beautiful kitchen and day room area. You make it comfortable. You allow for studying for students in a study area. You have accommodations when people need to stay longer or stay over. So for me, I'm just looking at the facility, and the facility does need to come in line with how your culture works for your people.
It absolutely does. And a lot of we talked a lot about when we built this rescue truck and planning for the future. The same thought process was really with the building. of having the facilities here that if we're trying to attract university students that need somewhere to study, we want to be that place of like, well, I could stay in my dorm and do my stuff, or I could just go down to the squad building and hang out.
Correct.
And that's a much better option. We got a gym that we can do lift weights or run on a treadmill or something like that, and just good areas to come hang out. We want it to be a welcoming environment so that the big one comes in, we've got people just hanging out and
ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned something about the truck. I want to kind of shift focus on that. We were chatting earlier, and I had asked you a kind of candid question, and I said, for an EMS department, a first aid squad, to get people that are volunteering as an EMT to cross the floor and start to learn the tech rescue side. It kind of, for me, my mindset just tells me firefighters are in tune with this. It's kind of just inbred in them. It's another, high hazard risk. It's part of what they do. Firefighters to do rescue work makes sense to me. EMTs, of course, they're a part of the process, there's no doubt, but to get them to buy into the heavy rescue side, there has to be an enticement and a support network in place. And you said something really interesting to me. You said that this truck and the amount of equipment and how well the truck's put together, the professionalism behind what this stands for, is the attraction for a lot of them.
It absolutely is, because if you got to catch them with that initial wow.
Yeah.
And the big feature of this truck is you can't see this thing going down the road and not just go wow, because it's a very impressive looking truck.
It certainly is.
And that's having that featured in our bay. You come out here and do your ambulance rig check, you can't miss it. You got this imposing figure
really
in the side of the bay. It just naturally pulls you into, well, what's that truck do? What's different with that than an ambulance or a fire truck? And you start asking those questions and you get that interest going. It's a recruiting tool on wheels. That's basically what it turns into.
I love that, which is needed. I mean, that's part of attracting and gaining membership to help us survive and thrive, if you will. Super important. An incredible build. We did the Behind the Build series before on this. We walked around the truck, really went through it, and talked a lot about it. You guys have quite a burden of tasks here. All tech rescue, trench, confined space, ropes, water, collapse, you name it, it falls on you.
Yep.
Requires a tremendous amount of training and equipment. The support network behind that, the people that support it, big part of who you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's very rare nowadays that you see a department do all of that by themselves.
Right.
And we are no exception. So obviously we've got the toolbox. We got the big truck here with all the equipment, but we're not the only ones going on these calls. We rely on a great relationship that we have with our fire department. We utilize their staff on these calls too. We do a lot of joint training, from motor vehicle accidents to doing joint training with them for extrication, rope, confined space.
I mean, you're running out on fire runs too. It's not that you're sitting idle during the day waiting for a tech rescue to come in.
Correct. I mean, there's only so many people that can go to these calls.
That's right.
And you can only tap so many resources. So being able to have that great relationship with our fire department, our police department, and even the town's OEM, we work really well with them. We integrate with the health department. We really, for not being a municipal department, we rely on all those municipal entities tremendously, and we really try, again, the outcome and the goal is that we're getting that patient care to that patient, and they don't care what hat you're wearing, they don't care what department you're from, they need your absolute best, and they don't care where you're coming from, they just want everyone to do what's best for them.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, I just, getting to know you and the culture here and seeing it all firsthand, it's a place of excitement. I think you're building for the future. We talked about the truck and allowing for some open space on the truck for future growth. And I think that that's an important part of a conversation for any organization, is looking at what the future potentially could hold.
It absolutely is. And even, where's the funding coming from?
Right.
Because that's probably a question that comes from every department is, where are you going to get your funding? We're a private agency, so we're not getting funding from the tax base necessarily. Right. So we rely on, a lot of donations. That's our backbone.
Sure,
and
relationships.
It's huge, and especially on the EMS side of things, you bill for service, but that income that you're getting from billing for service is getting less and less and less. So you got to have those partnerships and relationships in order to get the funding, those donations are huge, and we rely on those.
I just look at going forward, looking at the future for the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. What's it look like for you?
We're expanding, and we're expanding fast.
Yes.
When I started here, we had one ambulance on. We had 3 staff members.
Look around now, you got more than one ambulance, brother.
Yeah. And it's just just in my career, it went from that 1 truck to where we went up to 2 trucks.
Right.
Mostly during the week, and then it's 7 days a week. And next month we're starting our 2nd truck up at night.
Wow.
And it's just expanding. We're adding more stuff, adding more equipment.
Yes.
Just a lot of change, and you need more people. That's
There's
what it
a
comes down to.
delicate balance that has to fall in line, though, because if we scale too fast, we could fail. And I think scaling at the right pace with the right people, the right amount, and you need the right amount of people, you need the right support, the amount of equipment to do it. It's just scaling for the sake of scaling and going fast doesn't always work out so well.
That is very true.
Yeah.
You got to expand as you need it, and you can't be too far in front of the ball, and you can't be behind the ball and reacting.
Yeah.
So it's a careful balance.
Well, I'll tell you this, being firsthand and seeing it all today and previous visits with you, Chief, really well done. I think what you guys have built here is something to be very proud of. Speaking with a lot of your members today, we shared lunch in the day room with some of your guys and girls that are on staff today. It was just a great conversation about a very good institution. It's a beautiful area. You guys are busy. They've been running out all day, going on calls, and it's just fun to watch. And I would say that people that are watching, what the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad does very well is it takes care of its people, and it appreciates their people. It's important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Chief, thank you for having us today. Truly appreciate it. It's an absolute pleasure as always, and consider you a good friend. So thank you.
Thanks for
Appreciate
coming
it.
out.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for tuning in for the Behind the Department video series for the 2024 Fire and Safety Services Calendar Project. This was the October edition. We'll have 2 more months after this, but I always enjoy being able to sit down and meet great people and talk about great departments and share that with the fire and rescue services that are out there. So, Chief Matt Stiff, thank you, sir, of the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad. I appreciate you opening your doors to us, and we'll see you next month. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
Gotcha.